All right, well, we're going to get started with day 3 of MRDC's Software Week webinars, and today we're focusing on reporting. I've got Phil who's presenting today, and I'll be here with him to do the questions and answers at the end. We've got a little box you should be able to see on your screen with a Q&A on it. If you'd like to type in a message at any point during the webinar, please do, and at the end we'll try and answer as many as we can. So I'll pass over to Phil.
Well, thank you, Charlotte, for that introduction. In this webinar, we're going to be looking at the subject of reporting, and that's everything from PowerPoint reporting, PDF reporting, right through to online dashboards. So let's get started, and let's first of all tell you about the purpose of this Software Week. If you've attended one of the previous ones, this will be a slight repeat, so please bear with me just for 1 minute. We're looking at solutions to different problems and trying to resolve them or give you pointers and things that might help you to make good business decisions. And the focus today is on reporting. We've been looking at data collection on Monday, data analysis on Tuesday, and tomorrow we're looking at communities and social media research with a panel discussion of experts on Friday. So this is not a sales presentation. If you've turned up here hoping to see a sales presentation of all our best reporting software at the moment, that's for another time, I'm afraid, and we'd be glad to do it, but it's not for this webinar. This is really to discuss the topic and look at ways to help you to consider what you really need and how you can perhaps make more of what you've got and what you should perhaps be considering in the future. So our goals are to open up a conversation here, really, offer you some ideas to improve what you do and what you can offer to your clients, and hopefully improve the standard of software and market research, which has always been one of my ambitions and I hope to have had some influence over in my life. We're going to be looking in this webinar at PowerPoint and PDF reports, the topic of automated reporting, and dashboards, which are something I think are creeping into market research, but in my opinion, all too slowly. We're not looking at tables. That was covered yesterday in analysis, and that video will be available of that webinar if you missed it in the near future next week. All right, so let's get started. So what we've been doing prior to these series of webinars in Software Week is we ran a survey amongst people working in market research agencies to get their views on things that they thought were problems. And one of the topic areas we invited comments was in the area of reporting. And we got these are a sample of some of the answers we got. Some have been combined together to give sort of some flavour of the answers we were getting. But things like errors in reports, errors is something that I think that cropped up all too frequently. The time it takes to process big surveys, if you've got a big survey and you've got a lot of reporting to do, the time it takes. Dashboard tools don't really support market research, and that's something I totally agree with in general, and something that I'll be coming on to during the course of this presentation. The fact that we're not really as an industry geared up for large volumes of reports, so whilst we're probably quite adept or found some shortcuts to produce a PowerPoint report of our research findings, if a project requires multiple reports, like where you perhaps produce a report for each outlet of a particular company or each dealership of a company, we're not really geared up for that generally in market research. It's not something we do regularly, and handling perhaps up to 1,000 reports or even more is not something that we're naturally geared up to doing. Cost is something that come up quite regularly. The costs of dashboards have been prohibitively expensive and therefore not applicable to a lot of research projects. There's a need to move, it's felt, from PowerPoint and use dashboards more. So the whole topic is coming up over and over again of getting into dashboards, if you like, or research offering dashboards, and just choosing the right software as something that's presented problems. So some commonality to those problems that were cited in the survey, but quite a range as well of different little ideas coming up that we found. And there's probably a bit more that came out the survey than just sort of features and things about the software, whether it be just the cost or whether it be we're not able to do this sort of dashboard that we would like to provide our client. There was actually a frustration, and I understand that. I totally get that. It wasn't just that we're not able to give perhaps our clients what we'd like, but because it's too expensive. But actually, that's a real frustration because clients want it, and we don't have the tools to do it, and we don't know how to do it, or it's just not. It's just something that clients ask for, perhaps, but we just can't provide. And other industries, of course, are doing it. So, you know, if you go into the mystery shopping market, for example, which runs alongside market research to some extent, they probably are more geared up to automated reporting of 1,000 outlets of a retail outlet of some sort. So that sort of thing. There was a lot of emotion coming out, which we didn't get, to be honest, in the other parts of the survey related to data collection and so on. And the other problem was cost, and it wasn't just the cost of the software tools, although that was something that came up. It was also that there's no budget for producing high quality reports. So there's a budget to produce a PowerPoint report, but that's about it. And that PowerPoint report may take so many man hours to produce, but there's no budget to put it into some automated reporting system, or perhaps to put it into a dashboard so the client, as soon as the survey is pretty much finished, can log in and start to look at the data and browse it for themselves and produce charts and so on, and perhaps download that into PowerPoint or wherever else it might be. And I think that was, again, sort of tied up with, if you like, frustration, but also a real serious cost element there, because there was no budget to do that. And what's worse is that client expectation is growing in that area, because clients are used to browsing their data these days, and we're in an age now where data is regularly shared, and people expect to be able to get their hands on their data and look at it for themselves, rather than just being given a black and white report to read the findings. So let's first of all look at what market research can offer. We've traditionally done PowerPoint presentations, and they can look quite good. They can be very text-based. They can have charts in. They can have some infographics. The problem is that they're not the most comfortable. They're becoming less acceptable as a way of communicating information, and the expectation is really online, and they do take time to report. If you've got a set of cross-tabulations and a researcher who wants to get some of those figures in, they may have some shortcuts that helps copy-paste figures in. They may have a software tool that makes that a bit easier. But on an ad hoc project, that can be quite a laborious task, and generally to automate that is only possible if there's multiple reports, it's multiple countries, or multiple waves, as in a tracking study. So PowerPoint reports have a place, but they have some limitations with it as well. So they can look good, they can look quite nice. You can put charts out, you can have some commentary. They can be more for presentation purposes at a meeting or conference, but they are not necessarily the only way people want to see their data these days. And of course, there's no interactivity with a PowerPoint presentation. Before going too much deeper into what can be done, there are some low-cost tools. So Excel is something that people don't look at very much these days, but there are more and more low-cost tools where you can build dashboards in Excel or Google Sheets. They're better than most people think. I really believe that now, and there's quite a lot of templates out there. But the problem with them is they're not really market research focused. They're much more focused on the idea of showing volumes of widgets sold in by region or something like that, where you can filter on region and see that 10,000 widgets were sold in one particular city and only 5,000 in another. They're not really lending themselves to market research data, where we have a large number of of variables and a relatively small number of records. This is unlike almost all other business data where you have hundreds, thousands, and sometimes millions of records, but very few fields. So there's a limit to what's use Excel and Google Sheets is, but don't completely rule it out. There are some nice tools in there and some nice templates that you can use to make quite presentable dashboards, which may not look good as some of the smartest online dashboards that you've ever seen, but can be very practical tools for clients to navigate their data. So if your clients have more of a preference for what they can get out of the data rather than how it looks, and in fact it's not online, that might be a sort of tool that you can consider. Now there are one or two programs that produce what I call smart reports, and these are typically PDF reports. There are not many packages that do this, and I did say I'm not going to make this a sales presentation, but Snap is one of the few, one that we sell, in that it allows you to produce a report that's not just static or being fed with figures. It can actually be conditional on the results that you're finding. So pieces of text can appear based on the results, so that it's not just a fixed report with figures being pumped in. And what's more, you can have things like top 5 answers for a particular region coming out, and a separate report, multiple reports being generated quite easily. So Snap is one of very few products that can do this, that gives you this smart reporting capability. Again, it's not necessarily something that you can do on a small ad hoc project, because there is some setup work involved, but it does give you something that's very powerful if you need multiple reports or you have a tracking study or something like that. So that's a sort of an intro, and that information can be shared online as well, so that clients can log in and look at their latest data and see what they've got in real time. So there's some definite advantages of that. Where the real demand comes is over and above. This is another smart report here. Over and above these smart reports, where you get a proper online dashboard where different things are displayed that are meaningful to the client, if not 100% to the client specification, but certainly providing all the information they need in one tidy place, allowing them to browse it, filter on brands, sub-brands, regions, whatever it is that their discriminating factors are that they want to see. And this is where the real demand is. And there's a good reason for that, because clients are used to it. Clients have other business data at their fingertips, and it's just sitting there in a dashboard. And so much information is available online now, whether that be visitors to your website and your web pages, all that sort of information is available online. Market research data doesn't tend to be there. In the ideal world, this is what we would want. There are some cost issues. There are very few tools available. And the other problem on an ad hoc project, it's just not practical for delivering the required timescales, most dashboards, because most software is either customized or needs building to do it. And then time you've done it, it might be days rather than, or even weeks in the case of a complex dashboard. It'll be too late, or it would have passed, or there'll be no budget for it at all. The client would expect that just to be there and wouldn't want to pay another $1, $2, maybe even $10,000 to $20,000 for a dashboard with their data in it. So there's a limit to what's done here. The market is improving now. Ourselves, we're moving into this market next year, and there are one or two tools now that I would say are market research focused that are starting to come into the marketplace, but they're few, and there are not many of them there. And as I say, the ones that are sort of on the edge of it often might look very good, but they're not really market research focused. They don't understand market research, and we'll look at that in a second. Or they're just very expensive. They start with a price tag of $10,000 a year, and some higher than that. The alternative other thing is to deliver data in a client-friendly format, and this is where you want to integrate data into business information systems that your clients have. And again, they want access so that they can plug their data into other data that they may have. So that's another sort of thing which is not really a reporting, it's actually enabling reporting in their own systems or other systems that they subscribe to. So let's look at some of the whys as to where we are in market research. And really the software business, market research was ahead of pretty much every other business application in terms of software back in the early 1990s, as it's been overtaken, and that's because everyone now has a computer on their desk and everyone's online. And business information systems are already existent in most companies or many companies, and clients just expect that data to be available whenever they want it. They underestimate, typically, clients, the cost of producing this high quality reporting. It's something that comes automatically out of a lot of systems, but market research data is unusual because, as I say, it has this huge number of variables typically, and you don't know what you want to give clients access to or what the key parts of a project are quite often until the survey is completed. You can't say in advance that you want to put just 5 fields into a dashboard because you may not know what they are, and you might not know how you want to group them and so on. So clients don't always appreciate that, but of course it doesn't help necessarily our standing as suppliers of market research services. And where is market research different? Well, it's different because we have a lot of fields in our data. Each record has a lot of fields. We tend to work with relatively small numbers of records, so most other business data runs to thousands of records. We have multi-response questions, which most other commercial data doesn't have. It's either a numeric value or it's a choice of A, B, C, D, or whatever it might be. We have low bases, so you can filter data and suddenly that data's down to 3 respondents, and you don't really want your clients interpreting a dashboard based on 3 responses. So you have to put in control so that they can't fall down that hole, because I have seen clients suddenly start saying, oh, 68% of our customers are now doing this, and they're basing that on just a handful of people when they should be looking at some larger bases. Significance testing is something that's growing in market research, doesn't particularly fit into a dashboard very well. Hierarchical data is not perhaps in every survey, but we quite often run surveys that are doctors with patients associated with them, that their diaries where there's eating occasions each day, or products bought. So that has a hierarchy to the data. Again, doesn't lend itself particularly well to a dashboard environment. We weight our data. Most industries don't weight their data, they just count on what is there. And we have a lot of proprietary formats which make it difficult to get our data into some of these reporting platforms. So SPSS is quite a common format for data, SSS is another. These don't necessarily feed into all of the business information systems. So what we perceive is there's a gap between what clients are used to and what MR can provide at a reasonable cost. And whilst that's changing, and it's certainly something we're moving into in 2020 in a very big way, I see this as a real barrier and something that market research has been slow to accommodate. So what are the real problems? Well, one of the problems is that providing a dashboard, you don't quite know what the client really wants. What needs to go into it. It's not necessarily very easy. If a client comes back and says, well, can you just add in one more variable to that because that would help us analyse a dashboard, that might be quite a costly operation. If it's a customised dashboard, that would certainly be true, and would still take some time if it's a dashboard that's been prepared in some of the software that's out there that handles this sort of online reporting type of task. Costs are another real big issue. There are products that come in at about $99 a month, which are obviously quite reasonable. There's others that are $100,000 a year, and some in between that. Many of them, though, are certainly up to $10,000 or more a year, which means that's quite a big commitment, and you need a lot of customers who want that. And it begs the question, is the customer willing to pay more for you to pay your license fee and your fees for training to use such software that costs $10,000 a year? particularly when perhaps it doesn't even deal with market research data as well as it might. So there's some real gaps there that cause a problem. And price isn't necessarily a measure of suitability for what you want. I've seen some quite cheap, low-cost solutions that have worked, as I mentioned earlier, putting Excel dashboards out sometimes that provide the clients what they want. But equally, of course, a lot of the cheap ones don't work, and the other ones can be very expensive and not viable on projects. Getting help can be difficult. I don't think there's many software suppliers that are really experts in it, and that bridge between what I call business information systems and market research, I don't think a lot of research software companies appreciate that, and I think it's important to understand that and find people that understand that. Otherwise, that gulf isn't necessarily it can be encountered easily. I think you should explore what tools are out there. I think it's something you need to invest time in exploring and looking at, because I think there's going to come a day, and it won't be too far away, when it will become the norm that clients will expect even an ad hoc project in a dashboard so that they can explore it and share it with colleagues. So that day isn't far away, and I think if you put off these things, and then suddenly these types of technologies come in very quickly once they come in. If you think how quickly online surveys came in, I know this is perhaps for the US market. I know I've heard a stat at a conference in America once where online surveys one year represented about sort of 28% of market research, and then leapt to about 60 or 70 the next year and a half. So these sorts of things can come in very quickly and become a norm, and I think research agencies should be prepared for delivering data online so that it can be browsed by clients. And sometimes outsourcing to experts can be a way of gaining that expertise and learning. So I think it's important to learn about the possible solutions out there and exploring the software that's out there. It's something that we like to help people with and would be willing to help people with. Understanding what you're trying to do, I think, is the starting point, and what level you're trying to give your clients is the first hurdle and the first consideration. But I think really it is worth investing time in exploring and asking companies like us for help in doing that. And I think you have to take some risks, because if you don't, you're in danger of losing a project because somebody can deliver it in the way the client wants at a modest price, and you're in danger of being left behind and losing projects because of it. So I see that as a threat to business if you're not careful, that somebody will lose a project, not because they do the research better, not because they collect the data more efficiently, but because they can't deliver it in the way that clients are expecting. But talking to clients is always helpful, and trying to see what they want and learning from that, rather than perhaps, as I've seen sometimes, sort of trying to hide from clients and not discussing that. I think talking to them is a good route. And I think assuming there aren't solutions, it's easy to do, and some can have price tags that just simply put you off. But just exploring what's out there is a good start, and looking at what is possible and what might meet your clients' needs, to see whether perhaps you give them some simple solution to start with that's not expensive. They might then start paying for more, giving you more work so that you can justify, and so on. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to see if Charlotte's got any questions, and I'll be happy to field any questions that you have on this topic, and we'll go from there. Over to you, Charlotte.
Great, thanks, Phil. Yeah, we've got a few questions come in already, so I'll work my way through those best I can. We tested some online dashboard platforms, but they were limited. Do you have any recommendations?
I suppose I'd like to know what limitations there were, because I think everyone has different requirements here. So not easy to answer that question without knowing a bit more specifically. Certainly contact us perhaps after this webinar and explain what it is that were limitations. There is a problem. There's a lack of providers out there at the moment. There's some high-end platforms like Tableau and Deprezi and one or two others, but they're not cheap. I don't know their pricing, but I know it's around the $10,000 mark, I think. Please check that and don't quote me on that. But it's not cheap, and you need a sufficient number of projects to make it worthwhile having a license, and I think multiple licenses might even be more. I mean, there aren't many products in there that come in at low cost that you can just put a relatively small ad hoc project in, and that's one of the problems. You can justify these costs on a large scale tracking study, perhaps, because there's a budget to be able to spend so much over the course of 1 to 2, 3 years on setting up a dashboard and having suitable software. But it is a problem with ad hoc projects. Without giving too much away, that's something that we will be making some announcements about in the new year. But it's definitely an area, I think, where I think there'll be significant change in 2020. It's one of my little predictions for the year, which are always slightly wrong, but that's my prediction for 2020, that I think this will be something that will move. There'll be new products coming in that start to deal with the market research market well, and at a sensible cost.
All right, thanks. And we've got, can we link data from QPS into our customer's own dashboard system?
Okay, two things there. There's the getting the data out of QPS and getting the data into your client's own dashboard system. I can't comment on your client's own dashboard system because I don't know what data it accepts. So I'd need to understand how they want that data delivered. I can talk about what QPS can do. QPS has got some secrets that not many people know about, where you can drop out figures either from tables or from data into an Excel format that usually make it, so I should say, easy for another dashboard system to pick up. This is sort of hidden away. There is a tool in QPS to dump all the data or selected questions out to a CSV file format. But what most people don't know, there's also a way to get figures from tables into a CSV format of anyone's design. It does need some knowledge to do that, and some help from someone like us, for example, to achieve that, because you really need to understand some of the things that go on in the back of QPS. But it is possible, and most, if your client's got their own dashboard system, they'll probably be in a position to bring in or link in data in a CSV file or Excel format. I can't guarantee that. They may want it put directly into their database, in which case there's got to be some software in between that does that. But that's the best answer I can give without knowing a bit more about it. But please contact us if you want any help with that.
Great, thank you. Why are customised dashboards so expensive?
The short answer to that, I guess, is that most customised dashboards are built by programmers and, dare I say, are customised to whatever you want. So there's a whole load of programs that are written to deal with each part of the dashboard, each calculation, without each download report, whatever it might be the dashboard does. So they are built to specification, and like a lot of customized things, they take programmer time, they take a lot of time testing. I think customized dashboards, which have always been very expensive, are beginning to have had their day now, and not the route to go, because the software is gradually starting to improve, and gradually it will get cheaper. And I think next year we should be announcing something that is very competitively priced, that will make that more accessible. So I think customized dashboards, yes, they can be good on the biggest surveys, a bit like tracking studies I talked about before, but unless they're simple, they tend to be very expensive and hard to maintain actually as well. So if the client says, can you just change this, that just change this can be sometimes a substantial amount of work. So, but I think they will gradually get replaced by software that can help you load your data, link your data, and build them in a sensible way.
Great, thank you. And do you have any tips to get figures into PowerPoint more easily?
I guess by that, the question is meaning to automate PowerPoint, so that if you run some tables or you have some data, the figures link straight through. It's quite a big topic, that. I mean, there's various ways of doing it. There is some programming routes. You can program PowerPoint using Visual Basic to get stuff directly in there. There are other programming tools that can do the same thing. We did run a webinar recently which used something called our our reporting toolkit, which showed you how you can get figures directly from our software into PowerPoint and automatically update if you run the tables again, or added data and ran the tables again, for example. But there are some tricks to get to do that. Some of it needs some depth knowledge of how Excel and PowerPoint work. Other needs knowledge of how to drive the software. It obviously depends what software you're using. But if you're using one of our products, we can certainly help you there. So have a look at our video, which is on our website, which was the reporting toolkit webinar, if you use our software, or otherwise, if you're using our software and want something a bit more specific, contact us and we'll try and help on that.
You mentioned Excel dashboards. Can you get these for free?
It's not an area of my expertise, but I certainly have found some templates for dashboards that look quite easy to plug data in. I've only used one or two, so I'm not an expert. I think exceluser.com is a website that I've found some on, but I think if you just Google, you'll find some there. As I said a little while ago, some of them are more focused on sort of sales data and that sort of thing, or many of them are focused on sales data and that sort of thing, so that you can filter on region to look at your sales in a region rather than market research data. And one of the reasons for making some of the points about market research data being a bit different from much other data. But yeah, there's some free ones out there. Google around and explore would be my advice, and I think they're mainly free, yeah.
Great, thank you. We've got another one coming here. What data formats do you need for most dashboard systems?
I can't answer that for everything. The ones that are more market research focused will probably tend to take in SSS data or SPSS data. The ones that sort of serve all markets and don't really specialise in market research will probably want Excel data, or you may be able to put it in, transfer data in directly into a database. I think you'd have to explore that on a package by package problem, but the market researchy ones, or the ones more focused on market research, will tend to take in SPSS and SSS are the sort of most common two formats that we find. Okay,
thank you. We've got a couple more here. You mentioned Snap earlier. Does that have dashboards?
Not in the way that I consider a sort of a proper online dashboard with, I think we saw a couple of examples, you know, with interactivity and so on. What Snap does is have prepared reports available so that you can interrogate, you can hook into your client's data, or your clients can hook into data that you have in the system, so that you can explore it maybe on filters and so on, and use prepared reports and produce prepared reports or tables or whatever else it might be. So you can hook into things that they've got, and they can be, you know, quite smart. The reports you can get there, they can, you know, be controllable and have different output for different conditions within the data. But they're not what I call a true online dashboard, where you've got charts and things automatically updating on a screen. But yes, some of the things that you might be able to do in a dashboard, like downloading things, yes, you can do all that sort of thing, but not everything. I think if you're interested in that, probably best to get a presentation of that so you can see what it can and can't do, because it's quite hard to explain that in a short webinar like this.
All right, thank you. It's got one more here, and it says, we have problems producing PowerPoint reports for multi-country because they are time consuming. Do you have any advice for this?
Well, yes. I mean, there are some tools out there that allow you to automate a series of PowerPoint presentations. So I guess if I understood the question correctly here, what you're talking about is that you run a survey in 10 countries and you want 10 PowerPoint reports and perhaps a total one as well, rather than just doing one PowerPoint report, which is obviously typical for an ad hoc survey. There are some tools out there that do this, that help with that automation. And we've got a tool ourselves. In fact, we ran a webinar about a month or so ago on our reporting toolkit, which can help you automate getting figures out of our software so that you can put them into PowerPoint presentations. There are some tools out there, and there are ways that you can program those reports using Visual Basic as well, and some other languages. It really depends on what skills you've got. They don't necessarily lend themselves best to when you're producing sort of 5 country reports, because there's some setup work in setting up the connection between your data analysis or whatever your data and the report. So if it's only 5 reports, that can be, that can take as much time as it might do to almost do it manually. Probably will be some saving and a bit less risk of making errors. If you're producing 1,000 reports, there's some really good tools out there that can just churn those out. And there the setup time justifies, if you like, producing the number of reports that you want. It's something if we knew exactly, if you could explain what it is that you're trying to do, we would be happy to advise on that by perhaps sending one of us an email. We can perhaps look at what you're actually trying to do and the number of pages you're producing and how complex it is to advise on that. So that's something certainly that we can help with.
Great, thanks a lot, Phil. Well, that's all the questions that have come in for now, so we'll finish up for today. For the rest of the week, we've got tomorrow, Thursday, we've got online communities and social media webinars. And on Friday, we've had a slight change in our schedule, and we're now doing a webinar for helping you choose the right software. So we hope to see you on for those. Remember, we've got our blogs on our website, so if you want any more information on a lot of these topics, you can go on to those. And thanks again, and we'll see you hopefully at the rest of the webinars. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.